Hi, I'm Paul Wells. This is chapter 8 of the story of Plug and Plink. I don't know why these birds are so loud. Links to the previous chapters down in the description. Well, in chapter 7 I said I was going to talk about electronics this time round, but I'm actually going to switch to a different subject and postpone the discussion on the electronics to the next chapter. So, in chapter 1, you will recall, I got divorced, and that's what led to me being separate from my daughter, and that's what gave birth to the idea of developing a device for remotely teaching piano. Well, being separate gave me a little bit more time, gave me time to think, and it was a relief to be alone for a while, but I quite quickly thought, I'm not really very happy on my own. I would really like to have a partner. So I started to look at dating websites. I was as embarrassed as I'm sure anybody else is that ever partakes in these things. You have to take some photographs, you have to make a description of yourself. I wasn't comfortable about doing any of it. One of the websites I signed up to actually presented the profile of the lady who sat at the desk next to mine in the office where I worked. I'm sure it presented my profile to her as well. We never discussed it. I was tempted to send her a message and say, I'm sorry, I don't date anybody with whom I've already shared a mobile phone charger. Anyway, this went on for a little while, but I could see nothing was really coming up. So I turned to YouTube, of course. No, this is back in the days when YouTube subscriptions, when you subscribe to a channel, then YouTube would actually tell you that the subscription had produced a new video. An amazing concept, I know. But anyway, at the time I was subscribed to a channel called Top 10's Net, and they quite interestingly had a video called Top 10 Countries in the World to Find a Wife. Before making this video, I had a quick search to see if I could locate that. I can't find it now, actually. It seems quite strange. Top 10's Net channel still have the video Top 10 Countries to Find a Husband, so I don't know what's happened to the one about wives. Anyway, to cut an 8.5-minute story short, the answer is Russia. So I decided at that point, let's sign up to a Russian dating website. Let's see what happens. Well, I can tell you what happened. There was actually quite a lot more choice. I was a lot more excited about the chance to see a lot more ladies anyway. And typically what would happen would be a conversation would start up. We'd have some sort of chat for a while, maybe have a Skype call, but then the conversation would just die off. And the conversations were fairly benign as well. Subjects like, what do you like to eat? What do you like to do? What work do you do? What siblings do you have? That sort of thing. Anyway, a few of these conversations happened, and eventually I got talking to a lady who she told me she got a degree in psychology. She told me that she'd learnt all of her English. She's never had formal training in English. All the English she knew, she'd just learnt from children's books. Well, we had one Skype call, we had another Skype call, and at the end of the call she asked, so shall we talk again next week? And I said, yeah, okay, let's talk again next week. And then she responded with, you're not going to bother, are you? And I said yes, I'll call next week, even though I possibly hadn't intended to. I ended the call and I thought, well, that's incredibly cheeky, but I recognise that tone of voice. That's my tone of voice. That's how I speak. I tell an interviewer in an interview, your questions suck. This is me. This is how I am. So I was intrigued. And I thought, you're damn right, I'll show you whether I'm going to call you back. How dare you read my mind like that? So anyway, the conversation carried on for a few more weekends, and then she said, I have a cousin who lives in Prague. I will be visiting this cousin in 4 weeks' time. Would you like us to meet? And I thought, yes, that sounds like a good idea. I haven't had any sort of holiday for as long as I can think of. Yes, so I booked a couple of days off my work contract, booked a flight, I booked a hotel for myself, got myself over to Prague. We agreed to meet at it's quite a nice, large, old restaurant near to the river in the centre of the city. So we went there and had a nice lunch. I have to say, this lady was quite a bit taller and more elegant than I'd been able to glean from just the Skype conversations. And we talked. The subject of music came up. Now, a friend of mine had said, Paul, why don't you exploit your musical abilities? You know, women like this sort of thing. It shows your emotional side and this sort of thing. But I'd never been very happy about presenting the music side of it. In fact, I'd even done an experiment. What I'd done was I'd created another account on the dating website as a man, and then that allowed, as a woman. Of course I made one as a man. I made an account as a woman, and then that allowed me to see the competing men of my age. And I was quite surprised to find that at least 50% of the men purported to have some sort of musical ability, and the majority of them were piano-based musical ability. So I realised that piano was really nothing special. It was not a distinguishing factor anyway. So when we were discussing music over lunch, I didn't make a big deal of it. She said, oh, my favourite song of all time is a song called Careless Whisper by George Michael. Have you heard of that at all? Do you know that song? George Michael, Careless Whisper. So that's a recent song, is it? No, that's from the mid-1980s. Oh, right. No, sorry, I'm not sure I know that one. Shall we get the bill? So I signalled to the waiter. The waiter came over. I gave him a reasonably generous tip, I suppose. I was just in that sort of mood. And just as we were walking out, I noticed that there was a rather nice grand piano. And I said to the lady, would you mind just waiting here a second? I'm just going to have a quick word with the waiter. And I went to this guy and I said, look, do you mind if I just quickly use your piano? And I could tell by the look on his face, he didn't really want to. Who knows which goons he has coming and playing around on this piano. So he said, and I could tell he couldn't really refuse because I'd just given him quite a good tip. And he said, okay, but 2 minutes maximum, and keep it as quiet as you can. Well, anyway, I went back over to the piano, rippled out the opening ascending arpeggio D minor ninth of Careless Whisper. My guess is at that point I'd actually already sealed the deal, but anyway, I did carry on, played the rest of the song, and we left the restaurant. And I didn't think much of it. We walked around. This shows the ineptitude of my abilities with social skills. So we talked for about walked for about 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes, the lady said, "Right, I can speak again now." And I hadn't even noticed. She'd kept silent. She was reasonably impressed anyway, let's just put it that way. So the conversation carried on for a few more weeks. We decided to get married. April 2019. We got married in Bedford Registry Office. It's very, very good with a project like Plug and Plink to have somebody to consult. There are lots of decisions to make, and just having someone else to say, hey, do you mind a second, have a look at this, what do you think, is an enormous help. I don't really know how she puts up with me. I talk pretty much non-stop about Plug and Plink and very little else. When I'm not talking about Plug and Plink, I'm clattering away at the piano. So I don't know how she stands me, to be honest, but she does. We got married. The immigration process was an utter nightmare. The worst website you've ever seen in your life. I could write another chapter just about how terrible that website was. So anyway, this is where we are. I suppose that brings this chapter to a close. I will see you in chapter 9. Chapter 9 will be about the electronics. See you in chapter 9.